know him from films like Bombshell, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Air Force One, Public Enemies. The movie Blonde is coming out opposite Bobby Cannavale. He has done like over 150 guest spots. My friend and incredible human being, Spencer Garrett. Please welcome. Pop yourself on. Spencer.
Too much?
Wearing Santa Claus. I love it.
Well, it's a podcast. Nobody can see it anyway. So
Well, yeah, but well,
I'm
it's not
trying to get in the spirit.
Yes. Hi, Spence. I
Hi,
am so
Shari Shaw.
here. We go way back. You guys don't know, but we
We
go
go
way
back like car seats, baby.
Yes, indeed. But isn't it all about the connection in the world? Isn't
Yeah,
it all about making connections
yeah,
along the way? Uh,
absolutely. We
Spencer,
go back. We go back. What 20, 25, 30 years?
yes.
And your husband Rick, and you're Mishbuka from from when I first got to LA.
It's crazy. And my
Yeah.
heart goes to you, and I love you so much. And you know what? You guys don't know this. We don't speak, but when we do speak, after
Yeah.
year, it just starts from where it all
Well,
began.
and I know we were supposed to get together for a distant cocktail a couple of weeks ago, but we'll make that happen soon. Uh,
Definitely.
I was in the middle of shooting. Thank God I got asked to come back to the final season of Bosch.
So
So I was doing a bunch of episodes of that, which I just finished. So
let's talk about,
now
you want
that
to talk about,
now that we're kind of shut down for the holidays, I don't have anything on my schedule until March. So I've got lots of time for
well,
a
then you're
social
going to be coming
distance.
over. You're
Yes,
definitely going to be coming over. But let's get to what the audience wants to
let's
hear.
do
They
it.
want to hear about you.
Yeah.
I want to, I just, how did you become so successful? What is it about you, Spencer, that you were able to, you trained, you did your studying, but and I know you, so you would have things going on in your life, but the minute you went into a room, you channeled your superstardom and you were able to tell a clear cut story. What are the tools you use so we can maybe enhance people's lives?
Well, I mean, it's a lovely way of putting it. I started out I kind of started out slowly. I mean, I moved out here from New York in 1989,
Hmm.
and I kind of hit the ground running. I did a couple of things right off the bat. 21 Jump Street, and
Oh,
like the usual things that like the Walker Texas Ranger and Matlock, and I got on all these shows that were on the air at the time. And I kind of got into a good groove. And then, like every actor, I was 25 when I moved out here, and when I was 25, I looked like I was probably 19. I looked very young. So the kinds of parts that I wanted, and the kinds of roles that I was going after, it took me a while to sort of grow into my physicality, to grow into my face.
hmm.
Um, I was born 42, coming out of the womb. So I've always had an older energy, an older vibe. Um, but I wasn't really, I didn't get the young male ingenue roles because I projected a different energy. So it took me a little bit of time to kind of grow into my face.
Yes.
So, there were sort of peaks and valleys, and, it's a roller coaster ride, as you know. And then kind of about 10 years into it, I kind of clicked into a nice groove, and I learned how to be better in the room.
Mm.
I learned how to use that nervous energy to my advantage, because even to this day, I mean, even though auditions in person seem to be kind of a thing of the past, you go in the room and you're in there with a bunch of strangers that you don't know, and they're all there to judge you.
Mhm.
Um, and you've just left the waiting room with 12 actors who you all know and you're all
Yeah.
friends with, and you're all rooting for each other and you're all wishing each other well, but you want the gig and there's competition. But when you go in the room, you still have the sides in your hand and you're still kind of shaking the sides in your hand.
It
There's
never
still that.
goes away. Those nerves never go away.
Never
It's
go away.
adrenaline. It's
Never
adrenaline.
go away. And it's a good thing. I remember asking Lawrence Fishburne, who's sort of become a mentor and a very dear friend, and a father figure, a brother, in many ways to me, a touchstone for me as an actor. And I asked him, he did Thurgood several years ago on Broadway, a one-man show about Thurgood Marshall. And I said, are you nervous ever, like after all your success? And
Mhm.
he's won a couple of Tonys and been nominated for Oscars, and
Brilliant actor.
and he
Yeah.
said every time I walk out on stage, every single time I walk out on stage, I'm still have that. I mean, if you're not, you're dead inside. If you don't
Yeah.
have that buzz. So I learned how to channel that and be better at it. And I
How?
think I just think I think my confidence grew, and
Mm.
I learned how to be better in the room and own the room and own my time in that space better. It took me some time, but I learned how to, you got 5 minutes when you walk in the room. You got your pages, and you have 5 minutes to sell yourself on whatever piece of material you're given. And I was really good about uh, being prepared, doing my homework. If it was something I felt like I needed to be coached on, I would get coached for it.
Mhm.
Um, I went in there with a seriousness of purpose. Um, as I got older, I learned how to be more serious about knowing that this is a business. It's
Mhm.
not just it's a craft. Yeah, I mean that's why we're here. I love acting more than anything in the world. I don't know how to do anything else, but
Right.
it's also a business, and I learned that side of it. So I learned how to take that side of it much more seriously. So when I got into my 30s, my later 30s, my early 40s, I was kind of like people knew who I was at that point. I'd build up a body of work,
Mhm.
and I think my confidence grew. And I think when I walked through that door, um, you know, early on when you sit down and you have your sides in your hand, and somebody says, one of the suits says, do you have any questions?
Mm.
Do you have any questions for us? And I learned how to say, I'll ask you the questions when we're on set. You know,
Oh, smart.
I'll say no. We can talk about it. We can talk about it. On set. Like I'd already assumed I got in that room, and I just assumed that I was going to get that job.
Oh,
That's how I approached each audition, and it started to work for me. So
well, plus your work has to match it, and your work is glorious. And how did you work with your nerves? What was that little? Can we inspire anybody with any kind of information? Did you just breathe? Did you just take a pause?
I do.
What
I
did
just. I would take a pause. I would learn how to. I'm somebody that I try not to overwork the material. I try not to overthink the material.
Mhm.
Um, oftentimes I will get an audition, and this is probably not a great work habit, but it works for me.
Mhm.
Um, I like to find an improvisational quality to the material that I'm given. So if I get some sides, I'll read it through a few times. If I get the appointment on a Monday night and the audition is for a Wednesday, I'll read it through a couple of times on Monday night. I'll look at it once or twice on Tuesday. I won't be completely off book with it. When I go into the room on Wednesday morning or whatever the appointment is, I'll have it, but I like to be able to throw my own kind of riff into it.
Mm.
So I'm coming up with my ideas and my choices in the moment. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Wow. So you
yeah.
don't sculpt out your material all the way. You don't see the
I do.
beginning.
I do to a certain extent. I mean, if it depends on what the material is.
Right.
I will. If it's a certain physicality to the guy, or there's a certain thing that's going on within the context of the scene. But for the most part, I will have the sides, or I'll have the material, and I just like the freedom of improvisation, of coming up with my own choices right there in the room.
And
And I will, and I've learned how to gauge whether or not it's working there in the moment, and I can calibrate my performance, as I go along.
well, because you have enough confidence to read the room and still stay strong in the choices. But are you saying that you make up the words and improv the words? Or are you
No,
saying
no, 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 no. I don't make up. No, I don't make up the words. I use the text. Obviously, I mean,
it's
I,
really
I,
important to honor the text?
I'm there to honor the text. I'm there to serve the writer. I have a very dear actor friend of mine who famously would rewrite the writer's words. Uh, he shall remain nameless. A
Yes.
wonderful actor who actually also teaches acting, oddly enough. But he was rewriting his audition scenes. He was adding stuff, taking stuff out. And at one point I said, and he wasn't booking it. I said, I don't think you can do that. They're
Yeah.
very, writers, they're very, I mean, can you imagine going in to read from Matt Weiner on Mad Men, who was
No.
incredibly precious about you had to have and
Right.
everything had to be precise. So no, I'm very specific about honoring the
So
writer's words.
you're saying being free in the moment to moment of not knowing even in yourself what's going to come up next. But that, I have to say that comes with years of training and being free enough to do that.
Yeah, it works for me. Uh, and then again, if it's something where I feel like I really need to be very, very super specific and letter perfect, uh, and there's not a lot of room for error and fuck up, then I will be, then
Precise.
I will be precise. But for the most part, I like to. It helps me with the nerves. I like to go in there and just sort of feel loose. Um, I don't do a lot of chit chat in the room. I don't do a lot of glad handing and chitty chat. Hi, how are you? How you been? Now, I mean, I used to. Now I walk in the room, I sit down, and I say to them, "Got any questions for me?" No, good. Let's go. I mean,
Oh, that's
and then
incredible.
I
That's
go. I mean, I just go in there ready to work. I'm going in there. It sounds, arrogant and ballsy, but I go into the room expecting to get the job.
well,
Uh,
that is the best mindset I ever heard. Courteously aggressive, but believing in yourself is the only power you have.
yeah,
It's the only power you have.
yeah.
But deservedly so because you've booked so many jobs. But so in the past, when you walked into the room and started the chit chat, did you feel
Yeah,
like that took away from
that
the
was the nerves talking. That was me trying to find my way into my seat, and I was chitting and chatting and just bullshitting with the people in the room because I didn't have that confidence yet. So I was sort of using that. I was breaking that ice in order to settle myself into the chair to get ready to do the scene. Um, and I found that I was doing it a little bit too much. I was trying to be a little bit too casual. I was trying to be a little bit too familiar with the people in the room, a little bit too uh, I don't know. I
too
don't know what
cozy,
the word.
too cozy?
I was trying to be a little too cozy with the people, and there was a presumptuousness about that I found ultimately didn't work. And now it's just like, I go in, and I would also when I would leave the room, I mean, I would have those sides with me in the car, and I'd be driving down the 405, and I'd be looking at them. I'd say, "Oh Christ, if I'd put my arm here, and if I'd said this word with this inflection." Now I leave the room, I toss the sides in the trash can, and I go on to the next thing because you
Yeah.
can't overthink it. Otherwise, you'll be
Oh,
thinking about, if they went with the other guy, well, they went with the other guy.
yeah.
I know that I did the best job that I could.
Yeah. 100%. What was your first job? Do you remember your very first job that you felt, oh, this is putting me, this is putting me in a different level from where I started? What was that first
Well,
gig?
I mean, my first job, if you want to go back to when I'm,
Fine.
8 years old, I mean, it's
Well, that's a bit way back, but that's
yeah, yeah. I mean, I did like little after school specials and things like that when I was a little kid. I had no idea what I was doing really. I had a performer's heart. I had a performer's instinct. I grew up on television and movie sets. My mom's an actor. My grandparents were actors. My aunt and uncle were actors. My mom,
your blood.
I'd be on the road with her. She'd be doing summer stock, or she'd be doing a movie somewhere. So I grew up backstage in green rooms, in trailers. So I grew up sort of immersed in all of that, the culture of that, that world. Um, Very fortunate to have had that experience,
Oh,
but a lot
incredible.
of people don't. But so I think that gave me sort of a level of comfortableness with, being on a set. I love, and I tell my students, even to this day, as long as I've been doing this, 30 whatever years, every time I walk onto a set, I look around and I go, "Oh my God, I get to act today. I get
Yeah.
to act with Tom Hanks. I get to act with Charlize Theron." I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm starstruck still by the people that I get to work with. I'm still like, I just have the joy, the fact that I still get to fucking do this
Yeah, it's
after all
amazing.
these years. Um, I feel so lucky. But answering your question, there's one gig that I point to that kind of changed,
Hmm.
I suppose, the trajectory, which was I guess 2006. Um, Movie called Public Enemies. Bonnie Timmerman, a very famous casting director, Bonnie Timmerman,
Yes.
very famously tough, hard nosed. She cast Miami Vice. She cast every movie for Michael Mann. Tough New York broad, and she brought me in to read for this a really lovely role in Michael Mann's films, and I worship Michael Mann, and I was terrified, and because the character that I was reading for was like he was like an ex-boxer, and there was a very different physicality about him than I normally. I mean, I had been playing lawyers, judges, doctors. I called him my collection of pricks in suits. Uh, I played lots of pricks in suits for a long time. That was my stock and trade, and I got to be very good at it. But it was also very boring to me. Like I got to a point where it was like, oh, great, I'm playing another asshole lawyer on Law and
Yeah.
Order. Grateful for the work, thrilled for the work, but there wasn't a lot of variety.
Yes.
And so when Bonnie Timmerman brought me in to read for this thug, boxer, getaway car driver who shoots a Tommy gun, something I'd never done before. Um, and I went up to her and I said, before we read for this, Bonnie, I said, can I read for like the FBI guy or the lawyer guy? And she said, Spencer, I've been watching you play these pricks in suits for 25 years. She said, I've been following your career. You're really
Wow.
good at what you do, but she said, I think you're better than that. And I want to see you do something different. I want Michael Mann to see you do something different. So I'm trying to give you this opportunity to
Wow.
play a character that you've never played before. Um, and she did. And she said, come back tomorrow, come back the next day. And I really want to see you, I want to see you nail this. And so
Was
she gave me an opportunity to come back. I went back the next day, uh, got the gig. I was one of Johnny Depp's gang members in
Yeah.
this ensemble of, with Stephen Dorff and
Oh,
Jason
I
Clarke.
remember. I love your
Yes,
work.
I mean, and that movie, I would say, I had done several movies at that point. Um, I started with Air Force One and Lovely and Amazing, and some terrific movies. I built up a nice little resume of film work, playing different kinds of roles. But
Yeah.
that's the movie that kind of put me in grown-up movie world.
What did you have to do when you left to Bonnie's office that day and your adrenaline's rushing?
Yeah,
That you had to do this role and come back. What was your process? Did you
my
emotionally connect physically? What's your process? Tell us. And how did you overcome that by coming back the next day? And then I want to talk about how different it is now because you're not in the room. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I think my process was I remember driving home. I was having a conversation with Richard Schiff, who was outside the office, who was going in to read for a different part. And I mean, there were a lot of amazing actors there that were coming in to read for this film. And I knew that I was in some heady company. And I just remember driving home and thinking, okay, schmuck, she's handing this to you on a platter.
Yes.
Like, you have to come in and you have to deliver. And Michael Mann does something very unusual with his actors that he auditions. He has somebody with a steady cam film you as you're doing the audition. So I was in the room. It wasn't just me and like Zoom like this.
Oh,
There was somebody there following me around. I was doing the scene. So I was able to, act out the physicality of the scene. I wasn't just sitting at a chair or up against a wall. I mean, I was being filmed by a cameraman,
yes.
and that gave me the experience of being in a movie, directed by Michael Mann, and all of a sudden it just all sort of came together. But so I mean, I guess
So you felt
uh,
like you got lost in the world
I
of
got lost in the world of this guy.
oh, yeah.
I had read the book that the movie was based on. Um, I came in well prepared. I mean, I came in the day before even to see Bonnie, but
Right.
I was terrified, and I asked her if she would let me read for a role that I
Right.
thought that I would get more easily. And she said, "No, I'm going to challenge you.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see what you can do." So I think it was just that challenge of her throwing down the gauntlet and saying, you know, you're better than this, and this movie's going to change your life.
Yeah, but that's
Um,
incredible because when actors get a lot of opportunity, you either rise above it or you fall down because the nerves take over. So not to
yeah,
really, so you obviously did your homework in knowing the life of the character and you made your choices and combined yourself and
yeah.
you knew what you were going to do. You had to have pre-planned some things in this one, allowing yourself to get to the
Oh
moment.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I've also, I mean, the internet was around in 2007, but so I was like digging around and looking for information on
Mm,
this guy. His name was Tommy Carroll. He was a real life guy,
wow.
ex-boxer. He'd been in and out of prison most of his life. Um, I mean, lived a life, he murdered three people. I mean, like this is a guy that,
Wow.
so foreign from my experience that I had to try to, get into that headspace.
Mhm.
And I just love the buzz of that, just the juice of being able to have the challenge of, playing somebody that I wouldn't normally have had an opportunity to play. So um, it was it was a combination of me, doing my homework, coming in with a certain physicality about the guy that I had kind of come up with the night before, a certain way that he walked, a certain way that he spoke, a little bit of a Chicago accent. I was sort of throwing all these things together, and of course, when you do stuff like that, you run the risk of, I don't want to get caught acting here. I don't want
Mhm.
the acting to police to come, running around the corner and haul me out of the room. So I wanted it to be subtle and real and grounded. And whatever I did, it worked. Um, and the funny thing is, Bonnie said Michael is going to be watching this from Chicago, where he's scouting locations right now. He's watching this over video.
Wow.
And so I thought that he was in Chicago watching this somehow remotely. I finished the audition, and then Bonnie opened the door, and Michael Mann walked in.
No,
And he said, "That was terrific, kid. I'll see you in Chicago."
no way. You got this part right away.
Yeah, I mean that day. That
Wow.
day, which never happens. I mean, he came in. I thought he was in Chicago. He came in, shook my hand. He said that's the guy. He said, "I'll see you in
Wow.
Chicago." And
That is
and then the funny thing is, I've now done 4 projects for Michael since then. Um, he's become a friend and a mentor.
yes.
Obviously, I did something right, but I'll never forget when I was sitting in the makeup trailer. I flew actually back and forth between, I don't know if you know stories about Michael Mann and how meticulous he is.
I don't. I don't
He,
at all.
he has such an attention to detail about every the knot on your necktie and the kind of fedora that you're wearing and all of this. I mean, I flew back and forth between LA and Chicago 3 times for tests. My character had a broken nose, so they did like tests on my nose to do prosthetics on my nose and give me a broken nose and a cauliflower ear, they call it.
Yep.
Where I had like a busted
Yep.
up ear and I
Yep.
had a scar. Actually, still have. You can't see it, but I got a. They shaved my eyebrows to give me a scar over my eyebrow, which I still have to this day because my hair never grew back.
Oh
Um,
my God.
but I pulled Michael aside in the makeup trailer and I said, "Hey, Michael," I said, "thanks for this opportunity. I'd love to sit down and talk to you about my character sometime." His entire production team puts together every film that he does. He puts together a dossier on. I had a book this thick with
That's amazing.
with information about the time period, about my character. Um, so the homework was was
Gifted.
practically
Yep.
done for me. Every single actor in the film had a dossier on their real life
Amazing.
character.
That is incredible. I had
But I
no
pulled him aside and I said, "I want to talk about my character." And he said, "You want to talk about your character?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." He looked at his watch. He said, "Okay, go. Talk about your character." And I went, "No, no, I meant like I'd love to like get a drink at the hotel and talk about it." And he said, "Spencer Garrett." He said, "I hired you to be the guy. You show up tomorrow and be the guy. How does
Wow.
that sound?" And that's how it's like. He's like, I'm not going to get into the minutia, into the granularity of your character with it. I hired you because I knew you could pull this off. You're going to show up on set and you're going to be the guy. I'm going to direct the movie. There are actors, directors, and there are directors that hire actors
Yeah,
to because they know that,
they can
this is
do.
what they're going to bring to the party. I mean, the difference between
That's
I
amazing.
it was I called it the year of my three Michaels. I had Michael Bay, Mike Nichols, and Michael Mann all
Jeez.
in one year. You could not ask for three
Ah,
more incredibly different directors. Mike Nichols, the ultimate actor's director. I
that's
love to be directed. I
why.
love
Because
I
he takes the time and he talks about it.
Oh
And
yeah, I love to be directed. I love to be directed. I mean, Michael Mann would give me direction, but for the most part, I mean, he's putting together set pieces and car
yeah,
chases and all of this. So you just have to show up and do your job, you know.
yes.
And he would whisper something in my ear from time to time, give me a check, try this, do this, change this. Mike Nichols, I mean, would pull me into his trailer and spend a half an hour with me. I had two scenes with Tom Hanks in that movie, and I'm sitting there thinking, I can't fucking believe I'm sitting in a trailer with Nichols talking about, my scene with Tom Hanks.
Exciting.
I still get buzzed over it.
Well, you love what you do, and you're so
I love
great
it.
at what you do. I mean, it's in your bones. Was your mother a president of the Screen Actors Guild at
She
one time?
was the not only not she was the president, she was the first woman president of the Screen Actors Guild.
And her name, just let's announce her name again.
Kathleen Nolan.
Amazing.
She was probably most famously, she was Wendy in Peter Pan on Broadway with Mary Martin.
Yes.
And then she did lots of live television in New York and Los Angeles. And then she landed her first television series called The Real McCoys. She did a show called The Real McCoys for 7 years with
Yes.
Walter Brennan and Richard Crenna. Got a couple of Emmy nominations and several hundred television shows. But she was the first woman president, not just of the Screen Actors Guild, but of a labor union in the world.
No,
Uh,
and that is amazing. That
yeah,
is incredible. I didn't even know that. I was just doing a little research on you, and I was like,
yeah,
because we
yeah,
go so way back, and I never
yeah,
even knew that.
yeah. No, no, mom's amazing. In fact, she's 87. She would hate if I told anybody that, but she's 87. She did her last. She worked 2 years ago. She did her last film, which unfortunately happened to be Burt Reynolds'
Mhm.
last film, a movie called The Last Movie Star,
Yes.
directed by Adam Rifkin. So she's still working up until about 2 years ago. Um,
Oh my God, that's
so she
incredible.
loves it. She loves it. She loves it more than I do. She's been acting since she's 2 years old. She grew up on a what used to be called a showboat on the Mississippi River in St. Louis. It was called the Goldenrod Showboat. The paddle wheel, the
Yes,
showboat, like
yes.
like the Mark Twain at Disneyland. She actually grew up on that, and it had a theater, and it would go up and down the Mississippi River, and people from the little towns would get onto the boat and sit in the theater, and they would put on plays. And then the play would be over, and then the boat would sail on down to the next town. So
Oh,
that's in my bones.
it
So
is in your bones. But also, Spencer, your voice is so powerful. It resonates from such a deep guttural place. That voice is so important for actors listening out there. But yours is, and were you were theater trained as well, right? You came from the
yeah, I
theater.
mean, I studied with Mr. Meisner for 7 years.
Yes.
I studied with Sandy off and on in Los Angeles, New York. He had a home on the island of Bequia in the West Indies where he would take 20 students to this island and for a
Wow.
month, and you would live, breathe, eat, sleep, devour the Meisner technique, 12
Yeah.
hours a day on this island in the West Indies. Quite
That's
an
amazing.
experience. But then I studied with him out here
Yeah.
at Playhouse West,
Yes.
um, and then a year at Juilliard. But I
Mhm.
left. I left Juilliard
Pursue.
I skipped out on the 3-year plan and just decided to head for the ocean.
Hey, you know what? You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. What can we speak to actors out there if they're just getting started? What is advice that you would give to them today?
Huh, it's such a different world. I mean, audition wise, I mean, I'm just getting used to this whole new self-tape thing. I went out and bought my ring light and my
Yes,
stand and my
yes.
self-tape thing, all that.
Okay,
Um,
so can I just say one thing?
yeah.
You still have to audition after your
It's
resume?
about
This, and
it's
everybody
about
take a look at his resume. It is huge. Yes.
it's about 50-50. I mean, I love getting offered stuff, and that happens a lot. But if there's something that I really want to go after, and and the manager says, well, he's offer only, and the casting director says, good for him. If he doesn't want the gig, then I mean, but listen, I love to audition. For me,
Yes.
for auditioning it's a chance to act, you know,
Yes.
and I'm good at it, and I like doing it, and I have fun doing it, so I don't mind it.
Wait, so
Um,
let me backtrack for a
yeah,
second. We'll talk about the audition instead of the advice. So when you're doing your auditions now,
yeah.
because you're at home and you're doing it on Zoom, do you have somebody call in? Because I know we coach here, but we coach on Zoom. Who reads for you? How do you set that up for yourself?
I actually have not done. I've only done one self tape during COVID.
Oh,
But usually I go. There's a couple of people that I go to that I
they
read
do
opposite.
it for you.
But I've only done one self tape during COVID times.
And have
Um,
you had any director sessions on Zoom yet? Have you had any experience on that yet?
I
Because I
got,
have clients that
I just got cast in a film by having an audition slash conversation with a director in London over Zoom,
mm,
just like this.
yeah.
It was a 45-minute long conversation. We talked for about 35 minutes, and then he said, "You want to do a little bit of reading?" And I read with him.
Wow.
And it was whatever, it was two in the afternoon here and 10 at night there, and we read and we were done. And he said, all right, mate, I'll see you on the set. So, um,
This happens to you quite a bit. I love this.
yeah, no,
It's moments.
so
It's
listen, God willing, I'm supposed to start a series. I got cast in a series for Adam McKay, um,
oh, which one?
playing, it's tentatively called Showtime. I think they're going to change the name of it, but it's about the late 1980s LA Lakers with
Oh,
Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I'm playing this guy. I'm playing
incredible, incredible. This is so exciting. Let's see.
I'm playing
Ah,
Chick Hearn.
you're playing Chick Hearn?
I'm playing Chick Hearn,
That's
the voice of the
amazing.
Lakers for 50 years. So we shot the pilot. We were supposed to go into production. We got picked up for a season. We were supposed to start in June.
Yes.
But we've been pushed to April. So I'm pretty psyched about that. So that's what I've been. So I can't really take anything that's
No, you
gonna
can't.
that's gonna interfere with that. But I might get to go to London for 10 days and squeeze that in. That wouldn't suck. Um,
No.
but listen, as far as advice, I mean, you know, I say this to everybody and to all of the kids that I talk to, the students. I teach out at the Ruskin School for John Ruskin, who was
Okay.
Sandy Meisner's assistant, and I teach a master class out there from time to time. And I just say, do your homework. Read. I'm sitting here. I'm looking at, what do I have? 11 plays by Henrik Ibsen on
Wow.
my desk. Uh,
Keep reading. Keep
Gene
reading.
O'Neill,
Wow.
Shakespeare. I mean, these are the books that I'm using to prop up my Zoom right now. I'm constantly reading plays. I mean, I probably read two or three plays a week. Um, I go down, there's something called the Criterion Collection, which is this extraordinary app. If you have Apple TV, it's where you can find all the foreign films. And I
Oh,
just go down I just go down a movie rabbit hole. I mean, learn from the best.
learn
Learn
from,
from the best, steal from the best. I mean,
but learn a
learn,
process. When you say to everyone to have a process, a lot of actors don't understand what a process is. So you have to find the place that works for you. Obviously, my studio, wherever, you
yeah,
want to go, that you
yeah.
have to understand how to craft your material and then
Yeah,
connect it to your heart. You have to, or
it
else,
has to, and it has to be you have to feel safe and comfortable in the space that you're doing your work in. You have
yes.
to be in a supportive environment. So, and I know that you have that. I know that your students adore you,
Thanks,
because
Spence.
you respect them. You're an actor yourself.
Well,
You respect the craft, you respect the process. You know how fucking hard it is
yes, and I'm
to do
obsessed
what we
with the
do.
process. I'm
Yeah.
obsessed. And all my teachers here, we're obsessed and we have a process that we use, but it comes from the true love of it. You can't teach it or be in it if you don't love it so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not a chance.
Yeah. No,
So
you have to love it. And listen, I'm so grateful that I love it every day. I still, like I said, there are days where I walk onto a set and I go, God, I can't believe I'm here.
yeah.
Like, I mean, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I had
That
not
you were so great in that movie. You were so wonderful. I was
I had not
screaming.
met Tarantino. I auditioned for a wonderful casting director. Again, if you are lucky enough to audition in person for a casting director who loves actors and
Mhm.
wants you to get the job, you're ahead of the game.
Yep.
Victoria Thomas is one of those people.
Yep.
She's been a champion of mine for a few years. She brought me in to read for this part. I read the lines of that character from the movie, and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy is me! Like I've gotta get this guy." And I went in, read for her, and I left the room and I just thought I knew I was going to get that gig.
Yeah.
I knew there was probably 200 guys that she read, but somehow I just thought this is my time to get this particular role. I met Quentin. I didn't meet him until I walked onto the set.
Wow.
Uh, we shot that scene in that little western town. It was
Yeah.
me and
No, it was,
DiCaprio and Pitt,
yeah.
and and I'm walking from my trailer onto the set, and I see these two guys, and they're sitting there in the chairs, and because we shot the scene where I'm interviewing the two of them on the
Yes.
western town
Yes.
of
Yes.
DiCaprio's show, and I kind of stopped for a moment, and I'm about 100 feet away from them, and I went, "Holy shit, that's Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio." I'm, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? But you know what? The best part of that was I sat down, we shook hands, we hugged. Quentin said, "Thanks for being here." He knew he's like, "You did an episode of Family Matters one time where you played like the
No.
wacky." He knew every
Everything.
episode of every show, every movie that I'd ever been in. Because he's
That's
like an encyclopedia of film history. Um, and he said you were the only guy for this part. He said when I saw your audition, it was like somebody transported you from 1961 and put you in this
no. You
moment.
definitely have that period feel to you, 100%. But how did you deal with meeting him, meeting Brad Pitt, DiCaprio, all at once? Shoo.
Brad said to me, he said, "I know I've seen you in a million things." He said, "Have we ever worked together before?" And I said, "Well, we haven't worked together, but you wouldn't remember this, but we were both on the last three episodes of Dallas together." Um, and he was like a 19, 20-year-old kid. This is way before Thelma and Louise.
Yes.
And he
Yes.
was on Dallas. He did like a little recurring thing as a kid on Dallas. And it was
Amazing.
one of my first things when I first came out here. And DiCaprio turns to Brad and says, "You did Dallas?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Did you ever do like a Matlock or a Falcon Crest?" And all of a sudden, like the two of the biggest movie stars in the world are talking about the stuff that they did when, making their bones as young actors. I
Amazing.
mean, DiCaprio was on Growing Pains and he
Yeah.
did guest spots, and
Mhm.
Brad Pitt did a couple of failed pilots, and so like all of a sudden, you're talking to these mega movie stars who are also just incredibly talented and genetically gifted, but are
Yes.
also just like there's something about being a movie star and just having that humility and
Mm.
that warmth of like they were so
They were
welcome.
human. They were humanizing themselves, but which they are human, but they
Well,
were
I
human.
know, but they made me feel like a peer. They made me
Yeah.
feel like I wasn't just the guy coming into day play for that
Oh,
one scene. They were just as thrilled that I was there to be a part of the scene with them as I was to meet them. But the fact that we were just bullshitting about doing guest spots when we were young actors, I just thought, oh, we're just three character actors shooting the shit. You
that's
know, DiCaprio hands me a cigarette, an unfiltered Pall Mall. He says, "Do you smoke?" I said, "I quit about 10 years ago, but I said I'll have one now." You know, and I and I'm sitting there having a cigarette, and I'll never forget because I took a hit off the cigarette. I hadn't smoked, and I got like ripped from.
yeah, totally. And
So
no filter.
yeah,
No filter. Oh my God.
yeah. But we did that scene in like in three takes. Um, I had a 7 a.m. call. I was back in my car by 8:30 in the morning, heading back down the
Oh,
five on my
geez,
way home.
that's
You know,
amazing. What an incredible experience. What's
it
the
was
movie
great.
you have? What's coming out? You just told me you finished a movie,
It's
Blonde.
a film called Blonde,
Yeah.
directed by Andrew Dominic, who
Mhm.
directed Brad in Killing Them Softly,
Mhm.
and Brad Pitt actually directed it. It's based on the Joyce Carol Oates book about Marilyn Monroe, and
Oh,
Ana de Armas plays from Knives Out. Wonderful, wonderful actress.
yes, yes.
She plays Marilyn Monroe, and
Oh,
Bobby Cannavale and Adrian Brody, and a ridiculous cast, a great
that
cast.
is.
Um,
When is
I
it coming
play
out? When is it?
I play a pimp. I play President Kennedy's pimp.
Oh, this is
Yeah,
going to be fascinating.
it's
When is it
interesting.
out?
Yeah.
When is it going to be out?
I mean, it was supposed to be out in the fall. I don't know if it's going to be out. I don't know if it's coming out this year or not.
Yeah,
Um, so who
I
knows?
hope so. I'm excited to see that.
Yeah.
I love you so much. Okay, actors, study, train, stay in the craft, learn a process. Before we close out, what are three things that you can be inspiring to the listeners about what they can have opportunity and what kind of mindset to stay in before we close this episode?
This pandemic will end. Life will get back to normal. Um, while we are in these unnormal times, um, stay as creative as you possibly can. And I mean that whether it's learning how to cook, learning how to play the guitar, do something creative, always be involved in something creative, always keep your creative juices flowing. Don't stagnate. Don't tread water. We're going to get out of this. And
Mhm.
once we do get the fuck out of it, we're going to hit the ground running and go back to the normalcy of the everyday of going out and auditioning and hustling and grinding, and that's what it's about. So stay creative, and do your homework. Watch as many films as God knows. I must have watched 100 movies in the
Yes.
last 9 months. Movies that I wouldn't normally watch. That's why I was talking about the Criterion Collection. Watching a lot
Oh,
of foreign films, watching a lot of actors that I hadn't seen before, watching a lot of movies that were on my bucket list that I hadn't gotten around to. So watching a lot of films with a lot of actors that I wasn't really that familiar with before,
mm,
because you can always find something in someone's performance
mm,
that informs something that you do.
mm.
Um, so I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, I 3 weeks into the pandemic, I decided to create a television show on Instagram. So I put together a show called Quarantine about 12 out of work soap opera actors, and we got together every week and we improved a 9-minute episode and put it up on,
We,
and we did it. We raised $25,000 for the SAG Foundation
it's amazing.
COVID-19 Relief Fund. Um,
And
just that,
tell
what's
everybody
that?
how to watch that because I had Jeremy Gordon on as a guest and he talked about it as
Oh,
well.
Jeremy. Well, he's my producing partner. I mean,
Yeah,
Jeremy
yes,
and I produced Quarantine. You can find it on it's like at quarantine.tv.
yes,
It's on IGTV, on Instagram TV. And there's 25 episodes. You can watch the entire series in an hour. They're like
yeah.
6-minute bites. And it's all improv, all made up. It's sort of guided improv. We came up with the storyline the night before. We would give the actors the premise, and then we would shoot it on Zoom. We had 3 different directors from 3 different locations filming this on Zoom, and then we would put it together, edit it, put music in, and we had a blast. And we did that every Friday and Saturday for 9 weeks, and that's what I did to keep myself from going
Same.
batshit crazy.
Yeah, you got
Yeah,
to keep sanity. And guys, let me just interject and say, if you can make as many connections in the communities that where you're studying, because whoever you meet during COVID, it's a lifetime friendship. It's a
yeah.
lifetime connection because this is never happened in 100 years. So
But
stay
also,
positive.
but
Yes,
not just that, being a part of the acting community is
yes,
is a lifelong thing.
it is.
You're gonna, the people that the students that you have in your class, you meet somebody and you're doing a scene work with your scene partner. You're this is a we're part of a community. We're part
Yep,
of a family.
yep.
Actors get a bad rap sometimes. But I think, it's important to understand, especially now, we're part of a family. This community of actors and creatives that are, we're making content. We're putting our own stuff out there. We're putting stuff on YouTube. You have to, you have to make your own shit happen,
You do.
and you're gonna develop lifelong friendships with the people that you grew up in your creative process with, during this time. So when this is all over, we're gonna look back on it. It's been a horrific time, but in a lot of ways, it's been a very positive experience creatively. Been a lot of good that's come out of it, I think.
Yeah. Silver
So
lining. You always have to look at that silver lining for sure. And I know
yeah,
the community is just the most important thing.
yeah,
And it's everything. It's just
yeah,
everything. Spencer,
yeah.
thank you so much for coming on today. I love you so very much,
Love
and
you,
I
Sherry.
miss you, and I'm so happy that we got to hang out. And stay strong out there, guys, and
I'll see
have
you
a
soon.
happy holiday.
Wear a fucking mask.
Yes,
Wear a
do it, do
mask.
it, do it, do it. You have to. It's
You
the
got to
only
do it. We got to do it. We got to get through this thing. It ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. It's going to be a tough winter.
Yep.
So everybody's getting all, I mean, everybody's all, jazzed about the vaccines coming out. We got a ways to go. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but I'm just,
Not Debbie Downer, your
please,
reality
please,
check. And
please.
the reality check is to wear your mask. The vaccine is not going to cover everyone maybe till August. And you have to stay
Yeah,
in that mindset. It's not over. Not
please
over.
be safe. And I love you.
I love you too. Bye, guys.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.